Flow Wisdom presents Quiet the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. Book summary.
Quiet. The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Quiet. The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain tells the story of how being introverted has its advantages and how the extrovert ideal is overrated. Learn how forced collaboration can stand in the way of innovation, and how the leadership potential of introverts is often overlooked. This book is passionately argued and draws on cutting-edge research in psychology and neuroscience. Leaders, educators, and parents need to pay attention to Cain's findings. Susan Cain. Before she became a writer for outlets like the New York Times, Susan practiced corporate law for 7 years, representing clients like J.P. Morgan and General Electric, and then worked as a negotiations consultant, training all kinds of people, from hedge fund managers to TV producers to college students negotiating their first salaries. Her clients have included Merrill Lynch, Shearman, and Sterling, 100 women in hedge funds, and many more. She is an honors graduate of Princeton University and Harvard Law School. She prefers listening to talking, reading to socializing, cozy chats to group settings, and likes to think before she speaks, softly. She has never given a speech without being terrified first, and explores this paradox in this book. Rosa Parks was an introvert. If Rosa Parks wasn't an introvert, she may not have made such a big stride for racial equality. Susan starts with this story that shows how the extrovert Martin Luther King was able to use Parks' example. Studies tell us that 1/3 to 1/2 of Americans are on the introvert side of this spectrum. There is no such thing as a pure introvert or a pure extrovert. Unfortunately, we live in a value system she calls the extrovert ideal. This results in parents apologizing for shy children who feel there is something wrong with them. In addition to Parks, Cain lists many other famous introverts. Basic descriptions. Extroverts tend to tackle assignments quickly. They make fast, sometimes rash, decisions and are comfortable multitasking and risk-taking. They enjoy the thrill of the chase for rewards like money and status. Introverts often work more slowly and deliberately. They like to focus on one task at a time and can have mighty powers of concentration. They are relatively immune to the lures of wealth and fame. They prefer environments that are not overstimulating, and 70% are also sensitive. They may be shy, which is a painful condition, but introversion is not. Cain provides a 20-item true/false test so you can determine where you are on this scale. I answered 16 items on the introvert side, which helps explain why I love doing Der Green Com. How did this happen? As we went from an agricultural culture to an industrial one where we needed more outgoing salesmen, the emphasis shifted from the quality of one's character to one's personality. We hear how Dale Carnegie became successful teaching people the extrovert technique of influencing people. Movie stars modeled personal magnetism. Madison Avenue spoke to our anxieties and gave us more extroverts as models as television spread. A new concept called the inferiority complex came into being, and psychologists invented the social anxiety disorder as a new disease. Schools increasingly focused on socializing students, and introverted students were often singled out as problem cases. Why introverted leaders might be better. Introverted leaders are more likely to listen to the ideas of others. This can motivate them to work harder. Extroverts are more likely to be intent on putting their own stamp on the organization's direction. This can cause workers to lapse into passivity. People tend to assume that loud people are more intelligent. When forceful people carry the day, a lot of good ideas from the introverts can get lost. Cain tells of an activity at Harvard Business School where a group is considered a failure if any member outperforms the group. This can happen when a quiet person has the most expertise. Introverts are more likely to reveal more of themselves via social media. They welcome the chance to communicate digitally and can now contribute in classes where they don't have to raise their hand and talk. We need a healthy mix of introverts and extroverts. When you find a creative group, you are likely to find many introverts. Introversion concentrates the mind on the tasks at hand. Solo practice is where work gets done. Top athletes in team sports spend unusual amounts of time in solitary practice. Many workplaces lack places where you can work alone. Top companies allow for the most privacy. Being interrupted is the biggest barrier to productivity. Too many meetings are toxic. Traditional brainstorming is less effective than letting people come up with ideas on their own. You get more and better ideas when you combine solitary work of multiple individuals rather than letting them work together. As groups get larger, performance goes down. This is due to some people not contributing. Only one person can talk at a time, and the fear of looking stupid. An audience causes stress, and the group can change your perceptions. Properly managed online brainstorming, however, can do better. At least some of it is in your genes. Cain cites studies that show how some of what causes your place on the introvert-extrovert spectrum is genetic. Some estimates lie in the 50% range. Beyond that, environment determines how much the best and worst qualities of each come out. In a stressful environment, introverts are more likely to be anxious and depressed. In a stable environment, they will be empathetic, caring, cooperative, and conscientious. They also are more resistant to colds and other respiratory diseases. What can we do to change? Research suggests that we have free will and can use it to change the temperament we are born with. Cain uses the metaphor of the rubber band to suggest that we can be flexible, but can only stretch so far. The excitable part of your brain, the amygdala, can be controlled if the thinking part, the cortex, makes the effort. If stress keeps the cortex busy, the amygdala will allow your fears to come roaring back. We each have what Cain calls a sweet spot in terms of the amount of stimulation that allows for optimal performance. One study showed that extroverts choose louder sounds while performing a task, and that they performed less well when the sound was turned down. The opposite was true for introverts. Understanding this concept can allow you to adjust the amount of stimulation you encounter and increase your satisfaction in every area of life. Extroverts seem cool because they are cool. Chapter 6 starts with a great story about Franklin, extrovert, and Eleanor, introvert, Roosevelt, and how their differences made them a great team. It goes on to talk about how introverts tend to feel more guilty, and that guilt is a building block of conscience. Functional moderate guilt may promote altruism, responsibility, and harmonious, competent, and pro-social behavior. Introverts may actually have thinner skin as they tend to sweat more. This means extroverts may seem cool because they are cooler. We need both. Extroverts get better grades in elementary school, but introverts outperform in high school and college. At the university level, introversion predicts academic performance better than cognitive ability. Introverts think before they act, digest information thoroughly, stay on task longer, give up less easily, and work more accurately. Introvert persistence is more than a match for extrovert buzz, even when a task requires more in the way of social skills. The best corporate decisions reflect the input of both kinds of people. Soft power, the Asian culture. It seems that Asians in the U.S. are more likely to be introverts and honor their parents' requests to study hard and do well in school. In Asian cultures, introversion is respected, not looked down upon. In the West, we subscribe to the extrovert ideal, while in Asia, silence is golden. As a result, Asians are less likely to make it to the top of American corporations. Doug, this cultural theme should be studied in Black and Hispanic cultures as well. Can you act more extroverted or introverted? Cain explores this concept and gives an example of people who do. Gifted teachers can be great in front of a class, but very introverted elsewhere. Some believe that our position on the spectrum depends on the situation. Free trait theory says we are born and culturally endowed with certain personality traits, but we act out of character when necessary. Some are better at modifying their behavior than others. Cain provides an instrument you can use to test your ability. You also need to be careful when you suppress your emotions and look for ways to restore your true self. How to talk to members of the opposite type. Opposites are often drawn to each other. One tends to talk as the other listens. Extroverts may have more friends, but they are not necessarily better friends. People who are agreeable will have relationships with less conflict, and there is no correlation between extroversion and agreeableness. At the end of the day, an introvert may crave downtime while an extrovert longs for company. Doug. Ideally, people entering a relationship would take Cain's test so they know upfront the personality type and typical needs of each other. Cultivating quiet kids. Parents and teachers need to recognize personality types and deal with them accordingly. Chapter 10 gives lots of great advice and examples. Don't try to change a kid. Expose children to new situations and people gradually. Note and respect their limits. Never call a child shy. Schools should prepare kids for life, but often kids need to be prepared for surviving schools, which are often designed for extroverts. Teachers should balance their lessons to allow for both types. Parents should meet with teachers to discuss their child's needs. Both should read this book. Love is essential. Gregariousness is optional. Spend your free time the way you want, even if it means staying home on New Year's Eve. If your children are quiet, help them make peace with new situations and new people, but otherwise, let them be themselves. Don't expect them to follow the gang, and encourage them to follow their passions. If you're a teacher, enjoy your gregarious and participatory students and cultivate the shy, the gentle, the autonomous, those with a single-minded passion. If you are a manager, ask employees to solve problems alone before sharing their ideas and give them quiet places to work alone.
This was released from For the Sake of Education by Flow Wisdom. If the content was helpful, make sure to subscribe.